Think about the last time you had to speak English under pressure. A job interview, a presentation, a phone call with a native speaker, a moment in a meeting where someone turned to you and said, "What do you think?" And your mind went blank, not because you didn't know the answer. You knew the answer perfectly, in Portuguese. But in English, everything stopped. The words that were right there, every day, in normal conversations. Suddenly they were gone. You felt your heart speed up. You said something simple, safe, forgettable, and the moment passed. I want to talk to you about that moment, because that moment has a name, and it has a solution. I want to tell you about a boy named Winston, born in 1874 in a cold palace in England, the son of a politician who barely knew he existed. As a child, Winston had a lisp so bad that his teachers gave up on him, a stutter so severe that he would stand in front of the mirror for hours, trying to force a single clean sentence out his mouth. His school report said he was lazy, undisciplined, impossible to teach. His own father told a friend, "Winston is a failure. He will never amount to anything." And then, on May 13th, 1940, in the middle of the worst war in human history, Winston Churchill stood up in the House of Commons, looked at 600 silent faces, opened his mouth, and said, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." The room went still, and from that moment forward, Britain did not surrender. The boy who couldn't speak became the voice that saved the civilization. By the end of this video, I'm going to give you Churchill's 5 rules for speaking under pressure, adapted for you, for job interviews, presentations, difficult conversations, and every moment when your English needs to be at its absolute best. Here is what happens to your English under pressure. And I want you to understand this clearly, because it changes everything. Your brain has 2 systems. System 1 is automatic. The part that speaks your native language without thinking, that drives a car, that walks downstairs. System 2 is deliberate. The part that learns new things, that translates, that monitors itself. When you learn English, you use System 2. You think, translate, check, correct. That is normal. That is learning. But under pressure, in an interview, in a presentation, in a tense conversation, your brain floods with adrenaline, and adrenaline shuts down System 2 almost completely. The deliberate, careful part of your brain goes offline, and what remains is only what is automatic. This is why native speakers can still talk when they're nervous. Their English is automatic. It lives in System 1. But your English at B1 or B2 level still lives mostly in System 2. And under pressure, System 2 goes dark. Churchill had this problem worse than almost anyone. His stutter was neurological. His lisp was physical. And yet, he became the greatest speaker of the 20th century, not despite his limitations, because of the system he built to overcome them. Here are his 5 rules. Rule 1. Know your first sentence before you walk into the room. Churchill spent more time preparing his first sentence than most politicians spend preparing entire speeches. He knew that the opening was everything, not just for the audience, for himself. Because when you begin well, when those first words come out clean and confident, your brain receives a signal. You are safe. The adrenaline drops slightly. System 2 comes back online. Your English unlocks. But when you stumble at the start, so I just wanted to, basically your brain panics. The adrenaline rises. System 2 goes darker. And you spend the rest of the conversation trying to recover. So here is rule 1 in practice. Before every high-pressure English moment, prepare 1 sentence. Just 1. Your opening line. Word by word. For a job interview. I've been thinking about this role for a few weeks, and the more I think about it, the more certain I am that this is exactly where I want to be. For a presentation. I want to start with something that happened to me last month that changed how I see this entire topic. For a difficult conversation. I've been thinking about how to say this, and I decided the clearest way is to say it directly. You don't need a script. You need a landing strip. 1 clean sentence to get you airborne. Everything else will follow. Rule 2. Use short words. Always. Churchill's most famous speeches, the ones that change history, are written in almost entirely simple words. We shall fight on the beaches. Their finest hour. Never given. Never, never, never. He understood something that most English learners do the exact opposite of. Under pressure, complexity is your enemy. When B1 and B2 students are nervous, they reach for complicated words. They think complexity sounds more intelligent, more professional, more native. So they say, I would like to emphasize the significance of the aforementioned, when they could say, I want to be clear about something important. Under pressure, your brain needs the simplest possible path from thought to word. Every extra syllable is a potential stumble. Every complex structure is a potential freeze. Churchill's rule: say in the fewest, simplest words possible, not because simple is better, but because simple is survivable under pressure. And once you survive, you thrive. This week, take your most common English sentences, the ones you say in meetings and emails and conversations, and simplify them. Remove one complex word from each. Replace it with something a 12-year-old would understand. You will sound more confident, not less. Rule 3. Speak to one person. Even in a room of 1,000, Churchill had a technique he used in every speech, every debate, every address. No matter how large the audience, he would find one face, one person in the room, and he would speak directly to that person, as if it were a private conversation, as if no one else existed. This is not just a psychological trick. It is a physical solution to a real problem. When you try to speak to a room, your brain perceives threat. Many eyes, many judges. The adrenaline spikes. But when you speak to one person, one friendly face, one pair of eyes, your brain perceives connection, safety, conversation. The adrenaline drops. Your natural English comes back. In a job interview, speak to the one interviewer who seems most engaged. Ignore the others for a moment. Come back to them, but anchor yourself to that one friendly face. In a presentation, find the one person who is nodding, who is with you. Speak to them. Let them be your anchor. In a phone call or video meeting, look directly at the camera, not at the screen. That camera is one face. That face is yours to speak to. One face. Every time. Under pressure. Rule 4. Use the pause as a weapon. Churchill was famous for his silences. He would stop in the middle of a sentence, look at the audience, and say, nothing. 4, 3, 4, 5 full seconds. And the room would go completely still. Most English learners are terrified of silence. Silence feels like failure, like you've lost a word, like the audience knows you're struggling. So you fill the silence with basically the sound of a brain that is panicking. But silence, used deliberately, does something extraordinary. It makes people lean in. It signals that what comes next matters. It gives your brain exactly the 2 or 3 seconds it needs to find the right word, the right sentence, the right structure. Churchill called it the pregnant pause, the silence that is full of meaning. Next time you feel a freeze coming, in an interview, in a presentation, anywhere, do not fill it with noise. Let it breathe. 2 seconds. 3. Look the person in the eyes. Nod slightly. Then speak. You will feel exposed for those 2 seconds. But the other person will feel nothing but respect. Rule 5. End with a call, not a conclusion. Churchill never ended a speech with a summary. He never said, so to conclude, the 3 main points were... He ended with a command, an image, a challenge. We shall fight on the beaches. This was their finest hour. Never given. Never, never, never. Lines that ring in the mind for 80 years. Most English learners end their moments of pressure with an apology. So, yeah, that's basically it, I think. Sorry if that wasn't very clear. That ending erases everything good that came before it. So here's Rule 5. Before you walk into any high-pressure English moment, prepare your last sentence the same way you prepared your first. Know exactly how you're going to end. End with conviction. End with a question that invites response. End with a challenge that stays in the room after you leave. That's what I believe, and I'd love to hear what you think. The question isn't whether we can do this. The question is when we start. I'm ready for this role, and I hope this conversation showed you why. And like Churchill, and like someone who believes every word they just said. Let's practice right now. Say each of these sentences out loud, with full conviction. Don't whisper them. Say them like you mean them. Sentence 1. I know my first sentence. I walk in ready. Say it. Sentence 2. I use simple words. Simple is powerful. Say it slowly. Sentence 3. I speak to one person. I find a friendly face. Say it. Sentence 4. I use the pause. Silence is not failure. It is strength. Say it. Sentence 5. I end with a call. My last sentence is my most powerful. Say it like you're in front of 100 people. You just practiced Churchill's method. In English, under zero pressure. Now your brain has a map. And next time the pressure comes, the map will be there. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments in English, what is the one situation in English where you feel the most pressure? Job interview? Presentation? Phone call? Meeting? Tell me below. One sentence. Because the next time that situation comes, you are going to walk into it with 5 new tools that Churchill spent a lifetime building. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If Churchill gave you something today, subscribe. Turn on the bell, because next week we go back another 2,000 years. We had Seneca for the mindset, Cicero for the voice, Feynman for the vocabulary, Churchill for the pressure. Next week, Aristotle, the man who invented persuasion itself. He gave us the 3 pillars, ethos, pathos, logos, that every great conversation, every great argument, every great piece of English communication is built on. And I'm going to show you how to use all 3 in a single 5-minute English conversation. Because speaking English well is not just about the words. It's about making people believe you. And Aristotle knew exactly how to do that, 25 centuries before anyone thought to ask. Subscribe. And remember, never give in. Never, never, never. I'll see you next week.